This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Hindu.
After India lashes out, the Indian scientist who wrote the Superbug report says the British badly misquoted him.
Have they tampered with your report? Have they, the interpretation part, have they changed, have they added without your knowledge?
No, I'm not in a position to tell. Please don't disturb.
The Supreme Court grants 6 weeks to the state to respond to the suggestion of restricting the annual Jallikattu to only 2 months. The ship carrying around 500 Lankan Tamils is escorted into the military harbour in Canada. Health concerns remain over these. It's a fall from grace for Sri Lanka's war hero Sarath Fonseca now faces the prospect of being stripped of his honours. BlackBerry reportedly relents to at least one encrypted service, but government still not happy with RIM. From the Expendables to PP Live, a quick look at all the new releases. You're watching the Late Night News. I'm Sai Manish. Those were the top stories for which details we'll bring you later. But let's have a look at what else is making headlines across the country. The Prime Minister and Sonia Gandhi meet to discuss the Commonwealth crisis. Even the Cabinet Secretary steps in. More trouble for Commonwealth Games. Premier Brands, the merchandising company for CWG, pulls out its contract due to delays. A teenager and a 5-year-old man, apart from 2 other people, killed in violence on Friday Prayers Day in Kashmir. 61 trucks loaded with explosives mysteriously disappear in Madhya Pradesh. Police begin investigations. And a shocking case, teachers beat up student for not paying 2 rupees for Independence Day celebrations. Well, India is angry this after a medical journal report traced a drug-resistant superbug to India and named it New Delhi. Metallo 1, the medical fraternity, has hit out at the study and pointed to a conflict of interest as the study was funded by 2 pharma companies. Now, reports suggest the Chennai-based author Karthikeyan Kumaraswamy, who did that paper, disassociated himself from parts of it. It also says the man who edited the report added many interpretations, particularly related to the last paragraph that warns against elective surgeries in India. Now, while the controversial report on the superbug advises people to avoid India for elective surgeries has created a furore, the Chennai-based lead researcher Karthikeyan Kumaraswamy says he is too confused. In fact, he spoke to NDTV's Sam Daniel. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
Please go and ask her. I'm too confused.
No, but you have been. But have they tampered with your report? Have they, the interpretation part, have they changed, have they added without your knowledge?
No, I'm not in a position to tell. Please don't disturb.
There are reports that the interpretation part of that particular report on the controversial bug was done without the consent or knowledge of Mr. Karthikeyan. How do you respond to that?
He did not have a clear understanding of that part that was given to him, sent as a mail.
So the alarm, the advice asking people to avoid elective surgeries in India is actually wrong.
I think Karthikeyan did not have the authority to comment on that. So he did not have any thinking on that.
So the implication, what the report says, that is actually not correct. Because that's the thing which has spread alarm across the country, asking people not to go to India for elective surgeries.
Basically, the chances of that being in any other place is there, but since it was detected in more numbers over here, that a comment had been made. But Karthikeyan had nothing as his opinion in that. He did not give much thought to that. His whole focus was on the research.
And this naming of the bacteria as after New Delhi.
It is a geographical nomenclature, which is done for many of the metallo-beta-lactamase genes.
Is there a common practice? Because many.
It is a very common practice which has been done earlier for these genes based on the geographic location.
And how do you respond to some reports that there could be conflict of interest also, because this was funded by the European Union and some companies which could have actually conflict of
No
interest?
comments. No comments.
And lastly, you said this bacteria was also found in hospitals in Chennai. Is it also equally important to make sure that this does not affect more patients in the country or in this part of the city?
Yeah, any such finding, we just definitely we bring this awareness ultimately to help clinicians treat patients better.
Should we concentrate on that now?
Yes, that is where we have to put our focus on.
Now, the Supreme Court today granted 6 weeks to Tamil Nadu to respond to the court's suggestion of restricting the annual Jallikattu to only 2 months. Just recently, Environment Minister Jairam Ramesh hinted at banning the sport. Public opinion has never been divided on this. In fact, among those who are staunch supporters of this, they say this represents Tamil culture and therefore there should be no compromise with this. On the basis of this popular support, the Tamil Nadu government had sought more time from the Supreme Court, and now they'll have to respond within 6 weeks. A court-martial has found the former Sri Lankan Armed Forces Chief General Sarath Fonseca guilty of engaging in politics while in active service. General Fonseca would now be stripped of his rank and medals once the government ratified the decision, which looks likely, especially given the bad blood between Fonseca and President Mahinda Rajapakse. He's been detained by the authorities after January's presidential election when he, according to reports, he wanted to oust Mahinda Rajapakse. Fonseca also faces a second court-martial and 3 civilian trials. Officials have publicly accused the 59-year-old of plotting coups and killings, but he says the allegations are all politically motivated. Now, the big story that we've been tracking, the MV Sun Sea carrying nearly 500 Tamil migrants has docked at the Canadian naval base. Those are the visuals there on your screens of the ship, in fact, being escorted by 2 Canadian naval warships. The tugboats ferried the 59-meter Thione cargo ship into the base on Vancouver Island shortly before. Not long back, dozens of border services officers waited on shore to meet the ship, whose 490 passengers are all seeking refugee protection in Canada. The officers and other officials donned surgical masks and gloves before boarding the ship, in light of reports that many passengers with infectious diseases might be on board. Some reports also indicate several passengers may be infected with tuberculosis, given the perilous journey they have undertaken across the Pacific Ocean. Officials erected large tarps to hide passengers from the media, and 4 buses and several ambulances waited to transport the ship's passengers. Those are the visuals on your screens there. The migrants are expected to be transported in 4 buses from the port at Esquimalta to various destinations, including Victoria General Hospital. Women and children are also supposed to be on board. In fact, let's just take you to the sequence of events that unfolded. That was when one of the patrol boats was taken out. Right there on your screens, a military boat was set off from Esquimalt, all set to get MV Sun Sea into the harbour. That's there on your screens, a military patrol boat, before you saw the boat being tugged. Then, of course, a view from the sky. This is where 490 of them will be screened and questioned by security agencies, amidst reports that many of them might have connections to the LTTE. This is where their medical screenings and questioning will be done. These were erected just yesterday. Now, here's another one of the 5 interceptor boats that we showed you before that were taken off from the port to escort MV Sun Sea into Esquimalt Harbour very shortly. In fact, these ships managed to tug the 59-meter vessel to the port. Moving on, there finally seems to be some headway in what was beginning to look like a deadlock between Research in Motion and the Government of India. NDTV has learned from sources that the Canada-based BlackBerry manufacturer has now agreed to allow the government access to the messenger services. Messenger signals are currently scrambled. The government will now get the PIN number and code for every BlackBerry phone in the country. Served with a government notice yesterday, the BlackBerry manufacturer Research in Motion today met up with Home Secretary G.K. Pillai. The 3-member RIM delegation was led by Vice President of the company, Robert Crow. They demanded a technical solution before the 31st of August from the officials. Emerging from the meeting, Crow commented that he was optimistic about arriving at one pretty soon so that BlackBerry services aren't affected in the country. Now, the battle against bulging bellies in Chennai seems to be losing this one. If statistics are to be believed, every third person in this city is overweight. Blame it on burgers, pizzas, colas, and yes, even masala dosas dripping with oil and ghee, the new staple diet of many in our city. But even if you're reed thin and a teetotaler, you could still have a fatty liver and high cholesterol. The fat boy slim syndrome isn't what they call it. What can you do then to combat cholesterol, a silent killer? Our health reporter Nithila brings us some possible remedies. Take a look.
Finger licking good, tasty maybe, but this could send your cholesterol levels shooting up like the proverbial Jack's beanstalk. But not all cholesterol is bad. As in the typical Indian film, there's a good guy or HDL and there's the bad guy or LDL. Of course, there are a host of other characters too, like VLDL and triglycerides. But if all that's a little mind-boggling, here's the simple mantra.
As long as we can avoid taking oily food, fatty food, or at least bring it down to the minimum, that will take care of our problems. I think definitely in the last 5 years, you would easily see a 20% increase, if that may be even an underestimate. And we would soon have about 70% of our population having various forms of metabolic syndromes.
If you can't watch your diet or if it's too late, your doctor will prescribe statins to reduce the amount of unhealthy LDL cholesterol in your blood. Researchers now suggest that fast food outlets could also provide statin drugs to cut down the risk. Imagine mix statin with your burger. But doctors say regular healthy meals and exercise is the ultimate solution.
Statins help bring down the cholesterol, and if we can manage with lifestyle changes and dietary advice, that would be best. One of the problems with statins is that it tends to affect the liver, and the liver enzymes tend to go up. And if it's not recognized on time, it can go on to liver damage.
High cholesterol, unlike high sugar levels, seldom present any symptoms, which is why it's considered a silent killer. But the good news is that you can undo the damage if it's early enough. So get that lipid profile done at your neighborhood diagnostic center, work out and eat right. In Chennai, Nithila, NDTV Hindu.
We're slipping into a very short break right now, but up ahead on the bulletin, flight attendant. Yes, you must know this man takes a leap of fame. And we bring you a whole new Spider-Man on the other side. 4 new avatars. That's coming up. Stay with us.